name, role, and one spicy take on Bitcoin security. Michelle, you're up.
My name is Michelle Weekley. I'm the Director of Product Development for Byte Federal. They were one of the first Bitcoin ATM companies in the United States. I've been studying emerging technologies since 1998, and my hot take is that if you are connected to the public Wi-Fi in this building, you are not ready to self-custody your own Bitcoin.
Great, thank you. Scott?
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here. My name is Scott Kisser. I'm from Seattle, Washington. I've spent my whole career in cybersecurity, privacy security for mostly enterprise-grade companies. Over the past 4 years, I flipped over to be the Chief Information Security Officer for Swan Bitcoin. I was originally orange-pilled probably 10 years ago, maybe longer, and the more and more I was in industry, the more and more I realized that Bitcoin are not only my people, but also what we're fighting for is absolutely important and critical. My hot take is, I got two hot takes. Being from Seattle, the Mariners are gonna win the World Series in 7 games. My security-related hot take is very similar to Michelle's. If you are thinking of self-custody, you need to think about the whole spectrum of self-custody.
All right, thank you. I'm Josh. I recovered a life-changing amount of Bitcoin in 2024 after my life fell apart in 2023. I left it in my shed and forgot about it since 2010. It's an honor to be here, and don't look too closely at my profile picture. Criminals are not known for an abundance of intelligence, so just consider it strategic misdirection, okay? So
before Bitcoin, after Bitcoin picture?
Yes. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and start with the opening. I think we all agree that self-custody is the answer, but we probably disagree on how. I would say Michelle has a grassroots approach, and Scott is an enterprise approach, and I have a maximalist approach. And so let's just find out how we clash. So I'll start with you, Michelle. What is your approach to Bitcoin security?
That's a big question. So I think security, we talk a lot about securing your Bitcoin, but per what Scott said, you've got to look at like the full spectrum of what does that really mean. It's not just about, is your Bitcoin in self-custody? Are your keys secure? There are so many other factors. There's digital security, which I think gets a lot of attention. There's also physical security. And unfortunately, we're seeing that grow as an attack vector. So that's something that really needs to be considered. And I believe that Bitcoin self-custody is for anybody, but it is not for everybody. And as the industry grows, there will be less people that are taking their Bitcoin into self-custody. I know not everybody likes that, but the truth is that not everybody knows, how the internet works. Not everybody understands when they pull their phone up. I think Rizzo earlier spoke about like the number of layers of technology that people on TikTok are using. Most of the kids these days have no idea what's happening behind the scenes. And as Bitcoin adoption grows, we're going to see more and more people come into the space that fall into that category. And I believe that if you don't understand the full stack of what's happening, you, again, are not ready for self-custody.
Okay, so Scott, how would you compare institutional custody to what she just said?
I agree 100%. Like, there's a lot of elements there. I think a lot of people that are in Bitcoin should not be into self-custody. I fully support self-custody. And you really have to ask yourself the question of, am I competent in other aspects of Bitcoin? Michelle's brought up some great points in the sense that you need to understand Bitcoin's created this great privacy paradox. And the paradox is it's the hardest money on earth, and it's going to allow humanity and communities to flourish. But when people initially opt into Bitcoin, they're opting out of their privacy. What do I mean by that? They're opting into KYC on an exchange. They're opting into going to public spaces like this awesome venue and having your photo out there. And so you really have to run your own threat assessment on yourself. What am I comfortable with? What am I capable of? And I think, just to kind of put a pin on that, like institutional custody and institutions offer some amazing services. They offer, Bitcoin is the digital bearer bond. It is non-recoverable, and institutions today will offer to insure that stack. And I think you really need to think long and hard about what you are comfortable with, what your family is comfortable with, and most importantly, like, where is this legacy going to go? I've seen some horror stories about people losing their stack.
Well, actually, let me cut you off.
Go ahead.
I'm going to get right into that. Attack trends here. So 22% of exchanges have comprehensive insurance. Exchange insurance covers company losses, not your account generally. There's no FDIC, SIPC. For Bitcoin, government provides zero protection. Physical attacks, 60-plus instances over the 2021 peak. 67% involved actual violence targeting Bitcoin holders. As far as I know, Swan Vault has no insurance coverage. You can correct me if I'm wrong there. 2016 Bitfinex hack, Mt. Gox, Quadriga, FTX. 20% of Bitcoin is lost forever. So we do have some new custody insurance options, Anchor Watch, Bitbox. But the reality is that self-custody insurance is rare and is mostly unavailable. So the pivot is, so exchange insurance doesn't cover your account, self-custody insurance barely exists. Between wrench attacks and insurance theater, where does real Bitcoin security actually live? Either of you want to try to address that?
I would love to. I think it's a great question. In a lot of sense, where Bitcoin security exists is where you're comfortable at. I'll put this out there. 2 years ago, I had a seizure. I ended up in the hospital bed. I got out of that event, everything's healthy, everything's fine, but it was a wake-up call to me and my family about really recognizing if things didn't go well, was that just another donation to the community? And for me, my security came squarely on that incident. And I think, like, does perfect security exist? No, never will. Michelle, I don't know if you...
Yeah, no, actually, I think it's important so the security often gets looked at as this very black and white binary, or is your Bitcoin safe? And I think something that's important, especially when you're newer, to learn and come to understand is that there's actually a spectrum of options and a spectrum of ways that you can own Bitcoin. Of course, you have institutional Bitcoin where it's an ETF or whatever, it's not really your Bitcoin. You hold your own Bitcoin. There are smaller, whether you call them exchanges or on-ramps that are auditing their reserves. I think that's a really important factor to take a look at if you're going to hold any Bitcoin on an exchange. There are institutions like, I don't know all the Swan, but Unchained, for example, has a 2 of 3 setup that you can set up, and Unchained can go under, you're still going to be fine. There's more and more of these options coming online, and so I would encourage everyone to view the whole concept of security, again, as a spectrum. It's not the only option is to go, air-gapped, cypherpunk, or my coins are on Coinbase, right? There's a lot of options, and I think that you should move your Bitcoin holdings along that spectrum as you become more and more comfortable with all of these different pieces of the pie.
Thank you for that. I would disagree with that. I think if anyone has any part of your keys, then that is not self-custody. But let's talk about the core debate here. The first question is for you, Michelle. You've been very vocal about wrench attacks, and 67% of those, as I said, have involved violence. What actually stops someone from torturing you and taking your Bitcoin? Not you specifically, but in general, the royal you.
Well, if we're in Florida, I would tell you it's that I'm carrying a gun, and you'd probably have a gun on yourself.
Yeah.
You know? I think Bitcoiners really should consider this, and I say that as someone who didn't consider my physical security. Really, I lived in DC for 12 years. I lived in Dubai, and owning a gun was not an option. Nobody owned a gun. And then I moved to Florida, and COVID happened, and I own a lot of guns now, you guys. So I know that that is not a solution for everyone. It depends, of course, on where you live. But I think that Bitcoiners seriously need to consider where they're living and what their options are.
Robot army, drone swarm, that was mentioned earlier. So Scott, let's pivot here for a second. What hardware wallets would you or Swan recommend?
I think there's a lot of good solutions out there, and in terms of a specific hardware wallet, I don't have that answer. I think one that I think you need to play with a few. Honestly, to be being self-sovereign is not, bringing your coin down to the wallet and walking away and having fun at all these conferences. Being Bitcoin did not invent the concept of sovereign, but it is reinducing the world to what it becomes to be sovereign. And it's testing it. It's being able to be comfortable in a situation. There are awesome hardware wallets that allow for, the name escapes me, but it's like a panic button. It's basically kind of the duress. Thank you. Duress pin code. Like you should be comfortable with moving money on a hardware wallet. You should be comfortable with duress pins. If there is, God forbid, ever a wrench attack situation, like some of these, there's some amazing engineering out there, and you should be comfortable. And so the one I would recommend is the one that you're most comfortable with, and to do that, you got to get out there and use some.
Thank you for that answer. That's a good answer. Again, I'll direct this question at you. Swan Vault has a 2 of 3 multi-sig, where Swan holds 1 key. That's my understanding. Walk me through why that is better than me holding all of my keys myself.
A lot of companies, Swan Vault, great product, has kind of the multi-sig model where Swan has a key, and that key it's an insurance. I think Unchained has a similar model, but basically, like in the event of Michelle and I sharing a wallet and she's not around for that 2 of 3, I have an ability to spend those funds. And I do that by going to that partner. Those partners out there exist because they are your insurance. They are your trusted partner to complete that second SIG.
Okay, so this leads to my next question, which is if Swan is subpoenaed, can they identify my UTXOs or freeze my account?
That's a great question. Legal scenarios and legal kind of threat modeling, I don't think... Swan, like many companies, has a business license, and I think in that scenario, like any company is vulnerable to being subpoenaed and having those accounts frozen and those signatures kind of locked up until that legal precedence is cleared.
So the answer is yes.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yes. The answer is yes.
All right, and Michelle, what is your take on collaborative custody versus pure self? You mentioned that a little bit already, but...
Yeah, so again, I think it's important for everyone to understand the full spectrum of options, and this can be a really good option. I think people setting up, this may be a little hot, but people setting up multi-sig by themselves, I think it's complex for most people if you're like a normie coming in new. But there are security benefits to that. And so I think there's different appropriate scenarios for everybody, and that what you're most comfortable with is absolutely the most important thing.
Well, so that leads to the next question is we keep adding complexity, multi-sig, geographic distribution, hardware wallets, backup seeds. Are we making this so hard that normies just say screw it and leave their Bitcoin on Coinbase?
It's happening, yes. Are we making it too hard? I don't think so. I think anybody who wants to spend a bit of time to learn how to do this properly can absolutely do so. There are a lot of resources. There are more and more coming, regularly. But if you are going to trust a third party, again, be very careful about who you're doing that with. There are options that are auditing, and I think those are good-ish options for a short period of time.
Okay, go ahead, Scott.
I think it's a great point, and everybody needs to be aware of it. Like, are we adding, Bitcoin is meant to be simple. It is meant to be transparent. Do we need an industry of third parties that are hoovering and consuming your KYC data? No, but we're trying to support an industry that is trying to flip the standard. And in that, there's going to be different rabbit holes, and you need to understand not just kind of the inch-deep kind of layer. You need to understand the depths of the rabbit holes and the consequences that you're getting into. One of the things, I don't know if I'm skipping ahead, but one of the things that I think is a risk that everybody needs to be cognizant about is we're all knowledgeable about Bitcoin. We're all knowledgeable about self-custody. If I am onboarding my parents or my spouse's parents, am I going to be evangelizing self-custody for somebody who's in their 80s? No, I'm not. Do I still think they need to own a little Bitcoin? Yes. And so Bitcoin is kind of, it's touching that electrical, that lightning bolt of knowledge, of power, of kind of being transformative, and you really need to understand kind of what you're touching.
Thank you. So I would argue that complexity is necessary. Bitcoin is hard money, and we should expect it to be hard to secure hard money.
Yeah.
But so I'll move on to the next question here. This is a 100K scenario. So the final scenario, someone has 100K in Bitcoin right now. What is your exact stack? Specific products, setup, Michelle?
I would recommend buying 2 or 3 hardware wallets, setting them all up, and deciding which one you're most comfortable using. There's some that I like more than others, but you might like different ones, right? So get a few, figure it out. It's not that complicated. There are a lot of tutorials online. Buy a few and use the one that you like the most.
Okay, I don't like that answer.
I know you don't. I know you want me to name one.
Okay, and Scott, I imagine you would suggest Swan Vault as the answer to that.
I'm not up here as a brand representative. Like in many cases, my answers are coming from just being a strong advocate for Bitcoin, strong advocate for privacy and freedom, and I really want people to understand. I'll say it again, Bitcoin did not invent self-sovereign concepts, but it is realigning the world to understand what that means, and I really think people need to be comfortable with what they have. If my children were sitting right next to me and I had a $100,000 gift to them and I was walking away, 80% of that would be in cold storage, 20% would be somewhere that they can move and operate and trust your own knowledge.
Any specific wallet, though?
No.
Same answer as her. Just do whatever feels
comfortable. Good. My first wallet I still use.
Bitcoin self-custody runs on vibes, I think is what we're figuring out today.
All right, I have a lot of friends that are not real technical, and they're using Jade. I think Jade is a pretty easy one to use.
Now, Jade is not Bitcoin only, right? Is it multiple? It is Bitcoin only?
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, I'm a little out of my depth on that one. Yeah. Okay, good. So let's move on to the next question here. 2 of 3 or 3 of 5 for 500K. Michelle?
What was the last one?
2 of 3 or 3 of 5 multi-sig for 500K.
What about single sig with 2 of 3 key distributed? When you take,
thank you.
You can take a single key and distribute your seed phrase into 3 locations so that you need 2 of your own 3 pieces of paper or, what are the metal things? signers or whatever. So you don't have to, even if you only have a single SIG, you don't have to have it all in one geographical location. I think for a lot of people, that is an easier setup than a multi-SIG. And I am not a fan ever of 3 of 5. I just think it's too complex.
Complicated,
Yeah.
okay. And what about you, Scott?
Similar, no 3 of 5. If we're up at 500K, I would strongly suggest and encourage people to look at insured options. That is introducing a third party. That is introducing a third party who may be subpoenaed. But also, breaking it up into, a hardware wallet that is, fire protected. Those keys are distributed someplace where that is absolutely going to be, safe.
Okay. Great, thank you. So moving on, estate planning. Okay, that's a big issue with Bitcoin. There are people out there presenting solutions. I don't know if there's like a standard solution right now. So how do your heirs get your Bitcoin when you die?
You got to teach them what to do. And I think that that's important. Don't send them to some lawyer or institution or, teach your kids how your Bitcoin works.
Fair enough. That's a good idea. Okay.
I'll go back to my situation coming off that seizure, make sure your loved ones, make sure the people closest to you understand what the situation is, why this is important, and if it is a significant amount of wealth to you, seriously consider trusted third parties for insurance and trusted third parties for, honestly, some of the trusts do have time delays, but you can get into that too.
Awesome. Okay, so rapid fire, is our paper wallets still valid? Yes or no?
I don't like them.
So
Negative.
No. Okay, I would say yes on both of those. But at any rate, okay, so moving on to our closing, final questions. If the audience was to do one thing tonight, what is it? 30 seconds each. Michelle?
Good question. There's a lot of things to do. Start going through. So again, it's not just about is your Bitcoin in self-custody, right? Start going through everything that you're doing. Did you connect to the Wi-Fi? Which Wi-Fi did you connect here? Did you connect at the hotel? And then what's on your phone? So take, for example, the mental model of if someone had complete and total access to your phone, what could they then access? Do you have things stored in your email? Is your email password protected or is it easily accessible? I would audit your own digital setup.
So your operational security, consider that. Okay, yes. That's good. Good, thank you. Scott?
30-second rapid fire. I'd like to leave you guys with one thought. Bitcoin is teaching everybody to be their own bank. Being your own bank comes with consequences and future knowledge. It's not just being a bank. It's learning about what security I need, what digital trails I'm leaving with my custody. It's about understanding kind of the threats that are happening around you and making sure you're aware of them and trying to plan against them. If you're going to be your own bank, you're going to need to start thinking about security, how to protect your corn, and more importantly, how to make sure everybody, all your loved ones, understand what's going on too.
Well, thank you very much for that. I will say that I think we disagree on the details here, and that's okay. We agree on the principles. Bitcoin self-custody is important. It's really non-negotiable for a lot of people. From wrench attacks to institutional security and insurance considerations, which we didn't get into much. Nonetheless, the through line is just as it's always been: your keys, your security, your responsibility. So take responsibility for your own security. There's a lot of great resources out there. Please go ahead.
I have one more recommendation.
Sure.
You need an AI safe word.
Tell me about
if you don't understand what that means, Google it. And this is related to Bitcoin because AI can absolutely and in exponentially more ways, coming rapidly, access your digital presence. And have an AI safe word with your family. Don't text it to them. Talk about it in real life. Don't talk about it in front of your Alexa. Do it, in a forest somewhere.
So everyone should have an inside joke with their family members that we all reference at every conversation you have. No, don't do that, but please.
That's right. I was just going to add on to what Michelle said. Phishing is the #1 vector. Your email, your phone is a door to your life. Your life is going to have like your buy record, your purchase history. Make sure you have proper protocols with your family. AI phishing attacks are happening.
No, that's the sophistication of attacks was already pretty bad or good, I guess you could say, and it's only going to get worse. And that is particularly relevant for custodians who, they represent an attack vector. So if they're holding keys for a lot of different people, then if everyone has their own key setup, then it's difficult to attack everybody. But if there's a custodian who's holding everyone's keys, then you introduce an attack vector, and that with these more sophisticated attacks being developed, like with AI, you might be better off. I would make the argument you would be better off just doing it yourself rather than relying on anyone else because of that very reason. But thank you very much for this. I think this has been a good panel. We've discussed a lot of difficult subjects, so I appreciate both of your inputs.
Great panel. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
So you've heard Bitcoin is the new gold rush by now. As world leaders on all sides have endorsed it as the future of money, and now you're looking to get started, we'll show you how. It's actually easier than you think. First, go to your nearest Byte Federal ATM and turn your cash to coin. Byte Federal has over 1,200 locations around the country with the highest daily limits. Go to our website, bytefederal.com, to find the nearest ATM to you. Log in to any wallet, then create an account, deposit your US cash, and instantly convert it to Bitcoin. That's it. We are the only US manufacturer and operator in the Bitcoin ATM industry, and our US-based live customer service is second to none. Go on, give it a whirl, and don't get left behind. Click the link below.